Welcome to our video. I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. This is part 2 of our organizational checklist, and in this video we're going to be dealing with people. We call it your ministry manpower. I want you to understand several things as we begin this. One is the power of preparation and planning. When you're going to design your ministry, we want to make certain that you've done the research necessary. So we tell you, do proper preparation, proper planning, and prepare your processes, because they will prevent poor performance. And that's somewhat a rule no matter what you're trying to accomplish in a program or an event or an activity or your overall church ministry. So we want you to discover certain things about yourself, your code, your culture, your core values, your mission, your vision. We want you to understand and have identified how you're going to go about in your strategic plan, because every one of the programs or events or activities that you would apply this checklist to is going to fold into and weave into your overall strategic plan, your game plan for how you're going to carry out the Great Commission in the posture of the Great Commandment. And so as you go through this, don't shortcut your preparation, planning, and the designing of your processes, because they're going to help prevent really poor performance in your ministry. What we're talking about in this video is hand in glove with the first one, part 1, where we deal with your ministry design, is helping you create your checklist and understanding all the kinds of people that you're going to have to deal with and that may be a part of your church and an individual ministry in your church. So we look at the design phase. The design part of this is that you're going to make certain that you have included everything that you should have included when you designed your ministry, in this particular case dealing with your personnel, your people that you're trying to reach. So here's your manpower checklist. We're going to break it into 2 parts. People. People are those you're trying to reach or serve or edify or evangelize or engage with in some way. And every ministry has prospects. These are the potential people that you would reach and minister to, whether your program or your event or your activity is to reach them, or to evangelize them once you do, or to engage with them for some reason, or to serve or edify them. That you have to understand that there's certain people groups that you probably are best suited to minister to. Not everyone ministers to everyone. It's very difficult to do that. And I have pastors who say, well, no, everybody is welcome at your church. I agree with that. You want a diversity, a diverse group of people. Diversity and leveraging that diversity is great. But when you set up a ministry, you're looking at who the potential people are that you would minister to or reach or serve or evangelize or engage with or equip and edify as you do that. It could be age-related, where it's 3rd and 4th graders, and you're working with their parents or legal guardians to be able to reach them, to get them into your program so that you can minister to them. That's a potential people group, 3 and 4th graders. Then you have personalities. With personalities, you have to decide this. Does personality type play a part in who you're most likely, or who is most likely to respond to your ministry? Well, I believe that there is some truth to that. If you go study the DISC profile, D-I-S-C, D stands for dominant, I for influential, S for steadfast, steady, and C for compliant, you'll find that the compliant person, and I had some sales training over the years, the compliant people are very difficult to sell to because they won't make a decision. They're very accustomed to being compliant to the wishes of their spouse or of their parent or of their peer group, and it's difficult. And you're going to minister to different kinds of people, and you better be prepared to have them, because you'll have the dominant person who wants to run everything. You'll have the influential person who is passive but still wanting to run everything. You'll have the steadfast person who may be very helpful and bring skill sets to it that they can help you with their skill set. And then you have the compliant ones who are followers. So as you look at this, and not every compliant person is a follower, but if you think this is important, then you need to pull up on your Google search DISC profiles and just start doing some reading. I have on our website, our Ministry Design Concepts website, one of the books that deals with types of leaders, and they're come in all different kind of packages. So as you go through this, the people that you're trying to reach or do the ministry for, the program for, the event or activity for, that you have certain ones that you may understand, all right, who are our prospects? Who are we most likely to reach and minister to? Who are we going to help? Who are we going to equip? And then you look at how you blend them together in your personalities. As we continue looking at this, if you're dealing with children, you're going to have parents. They're the authority figures. They're the responsible party for your ministry. You need to take into account the legal guardians, the parents, the authority figures, the ones who are responsible for the children. You need to take that into account and make it a part of your checklist to make certain that you gather in everything you need to win those parents. Then there are profiles. By this, I mean a short biography so that you can understand who it is that you're trying to reach or who it is that you're ministering to, and so you profile them. You want to understand who they are. Go back to the DISC profile and let's look at it this way. Rick Warren said years ago when he wrote The Purpose-Driven Church, he talked about the shape of people. And remember Saddleback Sam and Saddleback Sally, was it? They had shape, S-H-A-P-E. S is for spiritual gifts, H is for heart, their passions, A is for their abilities, P was for their personality, and E stood for their experience. So you end up with a shape biography of every person who is potentially going to be a part of a particular ministry in your church that you are helping, that you are ministering to, that you are serving, that you are challenging, that you are building up. Then people come in packages. Well, you better understand the people you're trying to minister to and how they are put together. Along with how they're put together in packages is perspectives. They all have a view of you and your ministry, and you do well to understand how they're put together. Do you understand their perspective? It's theirs. It's how they see it. They may not have a biblical view. They may not even like church. They may be antagonistic against what you're doing, but they see the benefit for their children or their parents or their whoever. So you want to understand their perspective. Better learn and ask questions to learn that. Now, let's talk about an area where you have to discipline and have control of whatever ministry or event or activity that you're doing. So we talk about punishment, and that's what and how to deal with broken rules. And what kind of proof do you have to have? Let's say you're dealing with teenagers and senior hires. What evidence do you need to convict them? How do you go about probing, investigating any allegations against a leader, a staff member, a volunteer, or a student, a participant? And so you want to think through these things. All right, we're going to have rules broken. Do rules have any, does breaking a rule have any consequence? What proof do you need to convict someone to show that they broke the rule? And how will you investigate any allegations towards someone that, hey, they broke a rule? Regardless of where you are in the process, you want to keep control of what you're doing, don't you? So that everyone can get the most benefit out of the ministry, event, or activity. So you're going to put them on probation? You know, what sentence are you going to deliver? Are you going to parole them where they're on parole? And, you know, they're being allowed and you're trusting them. They're a parolee. You're pardoning them. They broke the rule, but you pardon them. You acquit them, find them not guilty, or you convict them and then you have to maybe purge them out. When are you going to remove a leader, a worker, or a student from a particular ministry or event or activity? There has to be law and order, or no one gets the benefit of it. Ask any student in a classroom where the teacher doesn't know how to keep law and order what it does. Well, the same thing comes about. It may be in a very loose, loving, caring, warm, receptive, patient, tolerant way, but you still got a way where someone does something and they can no longer benefit from it because they're distracting and hindering and destroying what you're trying to accomplish with the group. Patience. When are you going to be long-suffering? So kind of put this together with your overall church. You should have this from Scripture, but with individual ministries and activities that you're doing on a regular basis, events that you are having, that as you consider all of these, how is all this going to mix together so that people know what's expected of them, and the people who want to get the most out of it know that you're going to protect them. You protect them from people who really aren't interested in it. Maybe they're just there to cause trouble. Now let's talk about your personnel. These are the people, your leaders and your laborers, paid and volunteer staff, who are there to help you reach and evangelize and equip and serve and engage with and minister to and build up. They are there to help you carry out God's calling on your ministry, on the individual program or project that you are doing. You have to deal with player placement. That's job assignments and team formation. What person do you assign which task or role in the program, in the project, in the activity or event, and how do you put the individual teams together? So let's say you're doing an event where you've got a teacher and 2 assistants, and the assistants are helping the individual students and helping the teacher, and they're there for support. But what if you put 3 people together who are like 3 cats tied by the tail, thrown in a gunny sack and thrown over a clothesline? If you still remember what a clothesline is. They're not going to get along. 2 against 1 or 3 all together fighting each other. So you have to consider, and it should be a part of your checklist, how are we going to build our teams and assign our jobs? Then partners. Now, I mean 2 things by this. Number 1 is your posture as the leader toward working together with the followers, with your other leaders and with the volunteer laborers that you have. And the other one is doing a buddy system. They need to realize that they're partnering with God and with you, that they're a part of what's happening, that their input is important. And secondly, you may partner up your personnel in a buddy system, and you certainly can do that with the participants, with the students, with the people who you're ministering to. You can use the buddy system because iron sharpeneth iron. At least that's the intent. And so as you look at the manpower checklist, think about platoons. I grew up, my dad coaching, I played baseball, then I coached in my son's play, and hopefully my grandson will play, and we'll be able to coach him. But we always had a bullpen, and a bullpen was a group of pitchers who could come off the field or out of the bullpen, run onto the field, get on the mound, get warmed up, and take the place of the starting pitcher or the middle reliever or the first closer. And platoons are they're substitutes. They're a pool of people who can step in. They're like understudies where they can come in and help. Now, you're going to have to set up how you're going to manage, and that's the next video that we're going to do. But how are you going to manage your platoon of workers who substitute in and out to help each other and to give each other a rest and time to relax and to recover and to rejuvenate them? I had a rule because of what happened while I was a youth pastor, where I had a children's ministry couple who were in a very stressful work responsibilities, and the only time that they ended up ever worshiping together, they were in children's church. And they ran children's church, and they ended up with a broken marriage and a broken home. And I look back at that because I was over everything with the youth there, from really college down. And as I did that, I looked and thought, how can we make certain that we don't put people in a place to get their lives broken, their marriages broken, their character broken, their heart broken. And I decided to rotate where people could serve in only so many places in the ministry, and we had to rotate the substitutes, where not everybody missed the worship together and the fellowship together because they were serving all the time. If you have the same people running your nursery ministry every week, and that director or assistant director, they're there 52 weeks out of the year for years on end, I don't think that's good. They need to be worshiping together with people their own age and then with their family, and they need to be fed and cared for and loved on and built up, and they do need to be allowed time to relax and recover, and so that they can go back in full steam ahead. So you should have a platoon of substitutes. Then let's talk about having a panel. What I mean by that is a leadership team. People who will help you maybe deal with discipline problems or curriculum decisions or personnel problems or participant problems, that they're there to help you. Then you've got to decide who's going to preside over each part of a program, a project, an event, or activity. Who's going to preside? Who's going to rule? Who's going to oversee it? Who's going to be the upfront person if you have something to deal with discipline? Who's going to lead in that area and preside over it like a judge or like a teacher in a classroom or a pastor from the pulpit? And then you have probies. I don't know that I spelled this correctly, but probies are newbies. They are people who are there for the first time. They're rookies. They're rookies. They're coming in for the very first time, and they may not know how to do anything. They may have had experience somewhere else, but they've not done what you're doing here. They're new to your ministry and new to that particular program, project, event, or activity. Then you've got pioneers. Pioneers are those who are going first, like people who pioneered the Wild West in the U.S., people who were pioneers to discover America. They were the first ones going in. And when you start a new ministry, those pioneers, both the personnel and the participants, you need to check that out and realize it takes a certain kind of people to be first. Certain kind of spirit, willingness, courage, and so forth. Put it down as a part of your checklist. If you're starting a new ministry that is new to your church, and everyone are pioneers. They could be newbies to ministry or be experienced, seasoned ministers, leaders, laborers, volunteers, paid staff, but they're going into something that they've never done before, maybe never seen done before, and you're pioneering together. You're blazing the trail. Then there's propagators. These are the folks, and these are good folks. They're going to promote your ministry. They're going to tell everybody about your ministry. They're going to share it outside and inside and everywhere they go. And then you got propellants. These people are going to fuel your ministry. They're going to propel your ministry forward. They're going to be combustible. You ignite them and they just thrust it forward. And so they're the high octane that you flip the switch and that fuel goes in and that octane goes in and they just surge your ministry forward. You need to take and be aware and put these people to use because they're going to fuel your ministry and promote your ministry big time. Then there are people who are proponents. They're supporting you perhaps monetarily, but they're going to protect you. So one's promoting, another is propelling, another is supporting you and protecting you. These are different ways to categorize the people in your personnel and people who aren't actively involved in your ministry. They're just really raving fans of what you're doing. Then you're going to have people who are great at presenting your ministry to others and convincing them. They're going to speak in behalf of your ministry, maybe to a group of people. And the importance of having these people on your side and making great use of them. You can further the cause of Christ in a great way by just identifying these people and making certain that you cultivate a relationship with them and give them avenues to promote and propel and protect and present your ministries to others. Well, you get more people there to attend it and reach new people groups and pockets of people you wouldn't have reached because you used these people wisely. So ask God to give you wisdom. Then you have proselytes. By this you can mean, I mean two things. Converts, people who came to Christ, but also people who become raving fans of your ministry. They've been proselyted. They're now fans. They're now converts. They now want everybody else to get the benefits of what you're doing, and they go back and get others. Think of the people who tasted of Christ and had Christ work a miracle in their heart, and they went and got their family, their friends, and everyone they could to bring them to Christ. Well, have your programs and projects, events and activities to be so well done and to have the wow factor so strong that people are converted into raving fans of your ministry, and they go out and tell everybody they need to come and be a part of this. And then you've got preservationists. Preservationists, they may be intent on keeping things the same. They want to preserve, but you may find that they're more of a protector or a historian to keep records. And so, you've got to identify what kind of preservationists they are. Are they looking to resist change and forward progress with your ministry? Are they there to protect it and keep it like it's always been in 1954? Or perhaps you could have one who'll say, I'll keep up with the records and I'll keep a history of what's happening. And they're a record keeper. And they write well. They record it so that you can tell the story. If you're going to raise money for a particular project or a particular program, event, or activity, having someone who can say, here's our track record. You videotaped this testimonial. You gave this numbers from your record keeping as to how it benefited and affected those that you were ministering to. It could be a very good thing. So you ought to have somebody who is collecting all this, loading your gun so your presenters and those who are going and speaking in your behalf, when they go to convince people that this is a good thing, that you have loaded their gun, so to speak. You've given them all the ammunition they need to be able to convince with a compelling argument to convince people to come take part of what you're doing. And then you've got people who are just going to provoke others. They stir up trouble. You're going to have them, and they're going to come from inside your church and outside your church. And then you've got pseudo parties. These are false participants or false personnel. You need to identify them. They're not really there to help you. They're there to harm you. And the sooner you can identify them and uncover them for what their real motives are, their real mindset, their real intent, that you need to identify them. And the Apostle Paul had them, and we're going to have them. I've had them. They're false. They're fake. They're pseudo. And you've got to look out for them, both in your personnel and in the people that you have. That people are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're false participants. So you also have professionals. Now, what I mean by that, in order to run the particular program that you're doing or the project that you're working on or that event that you're having, that you may need a nurse, an EMT guy, a doctor. And you say, why is that important? Well, I told you about the men's round tripper in the first part one of the video on dealing with ministry design, that we took, hordes of people, men, to spend the night, go to 2 Braves games and have activities and so forth. Well, we had a guy at the ballpark who got food poisoning. Well, we had with us an EMT guy. We had with us an ER doctor. Well, he was there by design, and God provided him in our church. And so, one of my folks, one of my congregation got very sick. And there was the ER doctor who was used to dealing with food poisoning and the EMT guy who was trained. And, it was a blessing because they were there to help. So when you do different programs, projects, events, and activities, regardless of what you're doing as a ministry and how you're doing it, do you need paid professionals there? Medical, technicians, special training that are there to carry out if you're doing a specialized event. And so when you think through this, just know it's on the checklist. Be proactive and think ahead. Show that you're a good planner and a good ministry design architect. Then you're going to have people who are part-time. They're professionals, but they're part-time. They're not there all the time. And so depending on the program and the project, the event and activity you're doing, you can have part-timers. They're volunteer rotation like I talked about. They serve for 6 months and they're off for 6 months. So they serve for 3 months and they're off for a month. And they're rotating in and out. They're just helping you part-time. You might want to give people that opportunity depending on what your situation is. It's always contextualized. So you have volunteer rotation and paid staff rotation. Now, what about a protege? This is an understudy, all right? And so, for years in theater, you had the main characters and you always had understudies who were memorizing the lines and ready and practicing and ready to go in and take the place of the key actors. They were understudies. They were preparing for it so they could take the place in case the person got flu, died, or something else happened, and the show would go on. So you want to prepare your leadership. Don't you want to develop others to lead? You want to develop volunteers and leaders and laborers. You have proteges, and every leader in your ministry ought to have proteges. They are understudies who you can give ministry away to or use them in other areas. Who will lead or labor next for every position in your program, project, event, or activity? Who will lead or labor next for every position in your organization? You pray for them, you find them, you equip them and prepare them for leadership and for labor and for volunteering, and whether it's upper management or middle management or upper leadership or middle leadership, that they're there and you're preparing them to do their work. You better fill up your platoon, is what I'm saying, with well-prepared people who are willing and passionate about your ministry so that, you can move forward. So as you look at this, and let me talk about one area, bullet point I didn't put here, and I just mentioned it, passion. When you go do the shape, and I just mentioned it in passing about the shape, spiritual gifts, heart, heart, their passion, you should want your personnel to be passionate about it. Instead of just pulling any warm body you can find in to be a volunteer or leader or to carry out some task, that you want people who are enthusiastic and convinced that this is a necessary ministry. It has to happen. It's not that it should happen. It's got to happen. It's imperative. And they will pour themselves into it, and they are passionate about it. Well, I'm Marshall Shannon, a ministry design coach with Ministry Design Training and Ministry Design Concepts. You can reach me at this email address or either one of these phone numbers. We'll be happy to help you. Do remember that at the bottom of the screen here, you have two things. You've got a download, a resource, which gives you the outline, and you have a area where you can make comments or ask questions, and we'll get back to you. So please take advantage of those opportunities. Thank you for listening. See you in the next section in just a moment.